Euaoi.
Back in October 2023, I made a video addressing my first impressions on the new Deal or No Deal spinoff titled Deal or No Deal Island. What Deal or No Deal Island is about is that it's basically the gameplay of Deal or No Deal merged with the long-running CBS reality TV series Survivor. In that video, I was rather critical of the idea because I couldn't imagine how Deal or No Deal would have Survivor-like elements incorporated into its gameplay. And the whole thing just seemed like blatant pandering from NBC to try to win over the Survivor audience. Why NBC would want to win over the Survivor audience is because despite the drop in quality in recent years, even though Survivor 46 was pretty good, and this is coming from someone who openly despises the new era. But back on topic, it's still one of the most popular shows on television today. Also, for time-saving purposes, I'm going to be referring to this show by its acronym DONDI going forward, since it's just easier to say. Since that initial video became popular on my channel, I decided to make weekly recap videos of each episode of DONDI where I would give a brief recap of the episode, address my personal thoughts about the episode, as well as my predictions for the future. Now that I've officially watched the whole season, I thought it would be fitting to make a review of the show where I would mention what I liked/disliked about the show. I'm also going to be comparing the show to the recent Survivor seasons because despite the two being completely different shows, the show itself keeps getting compared to Survivor by TV reporters and even had a Survivor contestant on there. So it's basically just asking to be compared to Survivor at this point. Before I head into the review, let me briefly explain the format of the show. In the beginning of each episode, we typically start out with social interactions from the contestants. The social interactions can range from casual bonding to talking strategy. After the brief period of interactions, an excursion then begins. Excursions are basically this show's equivalent of challenges, and each excursion involves the player having to retrieve a case with a monetary amount. How the cases are retrieved can vary from having to go into a mud pit, follow one through a rope trail, or even shooting at clay targets. For some excursions, the case's value will be shown on the outside, while for others, the value will remain hidden. At the end of each excursion, the player/pair with the highest valued case is immune, while the two players or pair/team with the lowest valued cases are up for elimination, where the player who is immune gets to pick who faces off against the banker. After each excursion, there's some brief downtime from the contestants where we get to hear some insight/strategies for how tonight's elimination will play out. After that, we then go to the temple, where the player that is immune with the highest valued case gets to choose who gets to play against the banker in tonight's game of Deal or No Deal. The amount of cases present varies by episode and depends based on how many cases were retrieved from the excursion, with the right side of the board consisting of values that were retrieved from the excursions, while the left side is filled with low amounts. How the eliminations work is that the player who is selected to face the banker will play a standard game of Deal or No Deal, with the twist being if the player accepts an offer worth more than what's in their case, i.e. they made a good deal, then they are safe and must eliminate one of their fellow contestants. But if they accept an offer that's worth less than their case value, i.e. they made a bad deal, then they are eliminated from the game. The value of the accepted deal or contestant's case is then added to the final case value, where the last player left standing can potentially win the final case value as the grand monetary prize. Now that you know how the format of this show works, let's actually head into the review. Let's start the review off with the positives. One thing that I liked about DONDI is the cast. While this may seem like a hot take, the cast felt unique enough regarding each person's life background, their reason for playing, and their demeanor. Examples include Dawson, an outdoorsy guy from Wisconsin who's playing to reunite his family. Miranda, an exterminator from Florida who's planning to start her own extermination business and help her community that got hit by a hurricane as well. And Kim, a woman from Arizona in her 60s who's playing to help secure her retirement. While it doesn't come close to being an amazing cast, it's a step up compared to most of the new era casts of Survivor that just consists of quirky white-collared millennial superfans who just want the adventure, and can easily fall into one of a few cookie-cutter archetypes. One thing about this cast that I found questionable is the inclusion of only one Survivor player, with that being Boston Rob. Why I found that choice questionable is for a few reasons. The first being, since there was only one former Survivor player, it basically just put a lot of the attention on Boston Rob, whether it would be from the edit or the other contestants. It would have been nice if there were 2 or 3 other Survivor players on there for Boston Rob to bounce off of, and add more variety to the gameplay/edit rather than just having it focus on Rob, his allies, and his adversaries. Because it honestly just felt weird how there was only one player who had previous reality TV competition experience in a cast full of newbies. In my opinion, it should have either been 3 or 4 former Survivor contestants, or none at all. Sure, there was Claudia Jordan, who was a former model on Deal or No Deal, but she didn't really have any previous experience in the reality TV competition scene prior to this, so she really doesn't count. Another thing that I liked about Dondi is that I personally think Joe Manganiello is a better host than modern Jeff Probst. While it may sound crazy at first, let me take the time to explain myself before anyone lashes out at me. One problem that I noticed with Jeff Probst's modern hosting skills is that he tries to use any emotional moment from the show as an outlet for an extension of his failed talk show. What I mean by this is, let's say, for example, when a castaway is breaking down into tears when they're meeting their loved one for the first time since they left. Jeff will ask a series of questions like, "Walk me through how you're feeling right now," or "Please describe what this moment means to you." Whereas Joe Manganiello doesn't do that, and he's just like, "Let's just play the game." And I honestly love how straight and to the point he is. To be completely honest, Jeff Probst could step down as host and announce Joe Manganiello as his successor, and I'd be fine with that. Another thing that I liked about Dondi was the drama, because prior to the chaos that is Survivor 46, every new era season felt more like a kumbaya retreat rather than a cutthroat game with how the cast gets along with each other. Here on Dondi, there are genuine rivalries, such as the tension between Alyssa and Stephanie, or the tension between Claudia and Kim, just as examples. In fact, episode 3 of this season was just filled with nothing but drama, and that was why I consider episode 3 to be my personal favorite episode of that season. I also liked the excursions. While simple in concept, they were unique enough and felt different each episode. Compared to the tribal challenges from the new era, where they all just consist of an obstacle course with a puzzle/carnival game segment at the end of it. Now that I've mentioned all of the things that I liked about the show, let me move on to what I didn't like about it. One thing that I didn't like about Dondi was how Boston Rob heavy the edit was. Because throughout the entire season, the edit focused primarily on Boston Rob, his allies, and his adversaries. This is a problem because the person who ended up winning Dondi didn't really fall into any of those categories, and because of that, was practically invisible for the first half of the season. Even the titles for Dondi videos on NBC's YouTube channel put an extreme focus on Boston Rob, such as Boston Rob reclaims control, Boston Rob's game gets blown up, will Boston Rob make the shot to win $1.5 million? And Boston Rob fights for his life. Sure, there may have been some Survivor fans who only tuned into the show for Boston Rob, but I wish NBC gave the other characters a chance to shine as well. Now onto the main flaw that I have for Dondi, that being the eliminations themselves. As mentioned earlier, how eliminations work is that the player/pair who brought back the highest valued case from the excursion gets to pick one of the bottom two to play Deal or No Deal, where if they make a good deal, they're safe and they can pick anyone who isn't immune to be eliminated, and if they make a bad deal, then they're eliminated from the game. As I was watching this season, I noticed more and more flaws with how eliminations are done. The first one being, there have been many instances where the players were pretty much asking the person who brought back the highest valued case to have them play. Why that's a bad thing is because in most other scenarios, you do not want to be the one in the most vulnerable position to be eliminated. Why it's different here is because if that vulnerable person makes a good deal, which is a 50-50 chance might I add, they pretty much get executive control of who goes home. One example of this is that there was a 4-person alliance in that season, and there was one instance where a member of that alliance brought back the highest valued case and nominated another person from their alliance to face the banker. And it's not like the odds of them making a bad deal are stacked against them. It almost literally feels like a 50-50 on whether they make a good deal or not. What's worse about this is that throwing the excursions to get the low valued cases is a legitimate strategy. An example of this would be in the final 6 excursion where they were split into 3 pairs, with the 2 outsiders, Boston Rob and Aaron, deciding it was best to throw the excursion. In that same excursion, the top pair would be immune while nothing would happen to the middle pair, and the bottom pair would be vulnerable for facing the banker. Why Rob and Aaron wanted to be the bottom pair is because the person who faces the banker gets the power to choose who goes home as a result of this terrible elimination process. Sure, Rob and Aaron's plan backfired and they ended up becoming the middle pair for that excursion, but the fact that throwing excursions is a legitimate strategy just shows how flawed it is. Another massive flaw regarding the elimination process is the personal offers that are offered to the players for doing really good in the game of Deal or No Deal. There were 2 personal offers throughout the season, and for the first one, which was offered in episode 5, Miranda was the person facing the banker and had 4 amounts remaining, with one case being only $100 and the other 3 being 7-digit amounts. The banker's offer was not only a $937,000 value for the final case, but also a personal offer for $40,000, which would be hers if she took the deal. With the catch being, if she took the deal, she would have a 3 out of 4 chance of making a bad deal based on what was left. She ended up taking the deal to the $40,000 personal offer, and the odds weren't in her favor as she made a bad deal and was eliminated from the game. The second personal offer occurred when Dawson was the one facing the banker and only had 3 amounts remaining, with one case being only $300 and the other 2 being 7-digit amounts. Dawson was then offered a personal offer of $100,000 on top of an almost $1.4 million value that would be added to the final case. But the catch is, if he took the deal, he would be automatically eliminated, regardless if he made a good deal or not. He ended up taking the deal, which resulted in him getting eliminated from the game. I should also mention that both times the personal offers were given, the person facing the banker planned on eliminating one of Rob's allies if they made a good deal. So you can argue that the personal offers almost felt like production meddling to increase Boston Rob's chances of staying in the game longer. Even if it wasn't production meddling, these personal offers are basically punishing the players for eliminating the low-valued cases. One more flaw I have about the eliminations is that it punishes them for eliminating the low amounts and rewards them for eliminating the high amounts. An example would be in episode 4 when Boston Rob was facing the banker. He had 12 cases remaining with 9 on the left side and only 3 on the right. He was given an offer of $49,000 and had a 3 out of 4 chance of making a good deal. Based on the remaining amounts, he then took the deal and, as you would expect, ended up making a good deal. Not only does doing well in the game screw over the players with personal offers, doing bad increases your chances of making a good deal at the next offer, which honestly goes against the core deal or no deal gameplay. How I would fix the eliminations is that the person facing the banker has to win a certain amount of money to be safe, rather than just making a good deal. An example would be, going based on the amounts shown for this game of Deal or No Deal, the person would have to add at least $250,000 to the final case in order to be safe. If they fail to do that, they're eliminated. If they beat that amount and make a good deal, they get to choose who goes home like normal. But if they beat that amount and make a bad deal, then the player with the next lowest valued case would be eliminated. This proposed change would fix practically everything that's wrong with the elimination process. The player gets punished for eliminating the big amounts and rewarded for eliminating the low amounts. Throwing excursions is a terrible strategy since there's a 2 out of 3 chance that someone from the bottom 2 goes, and the personal offers would put them in a near certain chance of being eliminated. Overall, I thought DONDI was an interesting spin-off of Deal or No Deal. While I liked how the cases were incorporated into the challenges and the actual drama that was present in the show, which hasn't been seen in the newer Survivor seasons prior to 46. Not to mention Joe Manganiello's great hosting skills. But the god-awful way eliminations are done is just too big of a problem to ignore, and just ends up becoming a stain on the overall show. Especially since the temple takes up about a third of the episode, and the eliminations are how the show decides the banker's worthy opponent. I should also mention that NBC renewed the show for a second season, but I'm not going to be talking about that. I just want this to be my last DONDI related video on this channel, and as a way of wrapping up the show, that helped me get the ball rolling for my channel. Overall, I give Deal or No Deal Island a 4 out of 10. For those of you who watched all of my DONDI videos, I have other game show and Survivor related videos that might grab your attention. So be sure to watch those, and thank you for watching.